You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Thursday, December 9th, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world, and we don't need no stinking disclaimers. Welcome to the next 2 hours of news, talk, interviews, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. Coming to you live from Rolla J Studios here in beautiful Potland, Oregon, along with my sidekick, the Robin to my Batman, the Ace to my Gary, Ganja John.
I love how when the disclaimer didn't play, you and I just looked at each other and went, I don't know.
It didn't play. It just happens. Also coming to us from our virtual studio in Astoria, Oregon, and a wonderful place for a slumber party, our own Cannabis Carrie.
Yeah, the studio you slept in last night. I love it.
I know. It was a good time. We were up there yesterday for a presentation for the folks starting the North Coast NORML chapter up there in Astoria, Oregon, and we will be doing some of that presentation for you today in the Radical Rant at 45 past the hour. We're going to give you some of the tools for winning the water cooler wars. You know, I came up through talk radio and I was mentored by Tom Hartman, the progressive talk radio star, and that was one of his sayings, is that we give you the tools to win the water cooler wars, those debates you have with your friends and family. We'll be talking about reefer madness and the studies and statistics you can use to help beat it back. Also on today's show at 30 past, we are going to say Cops Say Legalize Drugs with Terry Nelson. He's a former supervisor in the Department of Homeland Security's Border Patrol and Customs. We'll talk to him at half past and figure out what he learned about the Mexican drug war situation. Before we get to our news stories, though, I do have to break some news. This is breaking news happening right now. As of 1 o'clock Pacific time here, we've got a raid. Don't know if it's DEA or local cops, but there is a raid going on at the Medaleaf dispensary in San Jose. The address is 2129 South 10th Street in San Jose, California. They're calling for all supporters of medical marijuana to come on out there, take pictures, and protest this raid of a legal medical marijuana dispensary in San Jose, California. Also today is our Groovin' Thursday. Today I think we're doing a little bit of rock for Groovin' Thursday with John Doe Radio. We'll be getting that here at 20 past the hour. And of course, our hemp headlines with Cannabis Carrie. What's in the news today?
Well, today we're going to go to Vermont, who is moving towards a decrim bill. Also, this was from a stasher yesterday. The EU held a very powerful meeting yesterday. You know, John and I had a great conversation yesterday that our Tuesday World News Day was a little depressing for some out there, so I want to give you a little hope. And also, a fabulous reward is being offered in Philly. We're going to find out about that as well.
All right, we'll get to that right after this first break. Also coming up in the news today, interesting little bit that just came across CNN's breaking news tweet before the show. I wanted to include it in the headlines today. You know, yesterday, December 8th, everybody was talking about the 30th anniversary of the shooting of John Lennon. We also were reminded that it was the 6th anniversary of the shooting of Dimebag Darrell. Is that right? 6 years since Dimebag Darrell, the great metal guitar player for Pantera, was shot by a crazed fan. And yesterday would have been Jim Morrison's 67th birthday, Jim Morrison of The Doors. And that's the subject of our fourth story in today's news. The outgoing governor of Florida is going to pardon Jim Morrison for his indecency charge that he racked up in Miami in concert one time, and an interesting reaction from Jim Morrison's widow on the story. All that and more coming up today on NORML Show Live.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
High as a kite, everybody!
This drug in front of me is what they call marijuana.
If we had a dime for every dime bag bought in America, marijuana would be legal by now. Donate to NORML at NORML.org and support NORML Show live.
I'm going to light. Roll a big fatty.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
New data revealed today shows that the state of Vermont spends more than $700,000 annually to pursue citizens for small possessions of marijuana. Representative Jason Lorber announced plans to introduce a bill to decriminalize possession of less than an ounce of marijuana, saying that the state should stop wasting so much money every year on failed policy. He says the smarter approach is to decriminalize. With a state population of only 620,000, small possession charges led to 801 arrests last year, 76 jail sentences, and 270 field supervision cases. A 2009 Mason-Dixon poll of registered voters in Vermont showed that a 2-to-1 support for marijuana decriminalization, with 63% in support, 27% opposed, and 10% undecided. Representative Lorber reminds voters that decriminalization is different from legalization, and he is crafting a bill that would keep it illegal to sell or use marijuana and not change the penalty for driving under the influence. He's simply trying to change the penalty for possession of an ounce of marijuana to be a civil rather than a criminal offense. A ticket, but no jail time. Representative Lorber has served in the Vermont House of Representatives since 2005, and he co-authored sweeping legislation called Justice Reinvestment to reduce prison costs while improving safety by finding less costly and more effective alternatives to prison.
Well, good for him. You know, this is a good idea moving forward with the decriminalization bill. Again, decriminalization is something we support because no one deserves to go to jail for possession of marijuana. But again, we've got to remember that's just the first step. You can only make that as a first step because when you decriminalize, you make the possession not a crime. You make it something someone gets a ticket for. But the growing and the selling and the trafficking are all still usually felonies in this case. And so what you set up is a situation where on the demand side, the people who want marijuana have less risk they have to go through because now they're only risking a ticket for their demand. But the supply side still maintains the risks that they have, the felonies and everything they can get. So the price of marijuana stays high and the people that want to use it are more likely to want to use it. This is just a way of enriching people that are dealing marijuana on the unregulated market in the short term. Decriminalization is good. It's something we need to work for, but it's only the first step. We need to legalize marijuana, the cultivation, the production, the sales, the trafficking, the buying, before we'll ever have any reduction in the prices, before we'll ever get rid of any of the harms from prohibition.
Yesterday in Brussels, a public hearing on assessing the impacts of drug reform and regulation was held at the European Parliament, hosted by Parliament member Michael Tremonopoulos from the Greens Party in Greece and NCOD, a coalition of citizens for drug policy reform. It brought together an impressive group of global cannabis activists to discuss the issue for the public. Among them was leading Spanish cannabis activist Martin Brazerio, Mark Jonesman, a spokesman for the Union of Dutch Coffee Shops, and Richard Cohen, a former director of the U.S. organization NORML. Members of the European Parliament, Rui Tavares from Portugal and Dennis de Jong not from sticks, of the Netherlands, also spoke at the event. The hearing focused on the financial implications of decriminalizing drugs and regulating cannabis based on European statistical data provided by the EU. They found that the total amount of money that could be generated by a combination of cannabis reform measures is somewhere between 35 and 60 billion euro, or between 70 and 120 euro for each and every one of the 500 million people who reside in the European Union. Now that's about 46 billion to 79 billion US total dollars, and as much as $160 per every person. Dana Spignot, a new coordinator of the European Commission's anti-drugs unit, who also attended and spoke, repeatedly stated that the EU will block any initiatives of EU member states to start the legal regulation of cannabis or any other currently illegal drug. But the EU doesn't seem to be uniformed in this message. Back in March of 2009, the European Commission published the results of a research report on the global illicit drug markets from 1998 to 2007 and concluded that prohibitionist policies are failing in their main objective, which is to reduce the demand and supply of illicit drugs. The report even stated that these policies might be a crucial factor in generating and increasing harm to individual drug consumers, their direct surroundings, and society at large. One of the Dutch members of the European Parliament told the group that his own government was unfortunately moving toward repressing the Dutch coffee shops instead of moving toward a reasonable approach to regulation, bringing up the recent news of his country moving towards a ban of foreign visitors, a move he says will only increase the illegal market. Other testimonies made it clear that legal regulation of cannabis is taking place in several parts of the world right now and has produced satisfactory results. But most importantly, reform will not lead to increased use, but to safer conditions for drug consumers and more efficient approaches to law enforcement.
Yeah, this is so difficult on the international scene for them to be able to move forward with any sort of reasonable reforms due to many of the treaties that we're all tied up in, treaties that were pretty much pioneered by the United States of America, the 1961 Single Convention Treaty at the UN, I believe there's a 1987 treaty as well, where the European Union has to look at all sort of economic factors before they can make these moves. And it's a little different situation than what we have in the United States, where we're one federal government and all the states are subservient to it. The EU is a collection of member states of countries that are all independent countries. So for them to have to come together on any sort of consensus can be a lot more difficult in that scenario. We really hope that the folks in Europe are able to get their act together and move forward with reform. It would be nice to have somebody moving forward on a large scale like that. We've seen the problems in the Netherlands that the folks there are talking about the drug tourism. And again, that's not a problem of the Netherlands. That's the problem of all the other countries in the EU still prohibiting cannabis. Let's hope they come to the right decisions and make some sensible, positive moves for reform all across Europe.
A Philly man who runs a full-service ad design firm is hoping that offering a reward will help him identify the thief who stole his laptop. What's the reward? Why, a fabulous drug stash. As Kurt Shore was leaving his office at night last month, an employee accidentally tripped the alarm. So he left his car running as he ran back inside to quickly quiet the alarm. A nearby security camera caught him jogging from his car back toward the office. In the next 30 or so seconds, the security tape captures someone emerging from a nearby vehicle that had just pulled into the camera's view, quickly approached Shore's idle car, opened the driver's side door, and removed something, which later turned out to be Shore's briefcase containing his Mac laptop. Then the thief returned to his or her own vehicle and drove off. Shore did not realize the theft until several hours later when he reported it to the police. He says the police were really great in helping him out, but really couldn't offer too much help, even with the grainy security evidence that shows no detail about the thief's car or the license plate number. So Kurt Shore has decided to post the unusual reward for information leading to the recovery of his laptop. His agency put together a reward ad and poster that has a picture of a couple of marijuana buds and a pipe. He says that he is appealing to the criminal demographic and figures that the thief's friends will want the pot more than cash and turn in a tip. The poster's fine print reads, "Actual reward may vary." Now, he insists it's not a gimmick, though. He just wants his laptop back that had everything from sensitive business information as well as family pictures that he describes as priceless. And, well, assuming a laptop car thief probably has pot-smoking friends that will turn him in for a few grams of marijuana and a cheap pipe, he hopes that his reward posters will end up cracking the case. So far, he has received 0 tips from his poster.
Yeah, this is just offensive on its face here. Just the notion that, you know, there's something about being a marijuana smoker that makes you want to do carjacking and crimes and stuff. If you really wanted to make that a little more accurate, the drug stash should have been a bunch of meth or something like that, at least, you know. There is no basis for that, and it's just offensive that he would have come up with that as the way for trying to get his laptop back. That's just insane. Thanks, Carrie, for bringing up that story, and apologize to the folks they couldn't see that in the video, but I think the video is fixed now. Let's move on to our next story here. This one is one that came across a CNN breaking news. The charismatic but unpredictable lead singer of the American rock band The Doors, Jim Morrison, may receive a posthumous pardon almost 40 years after he was convicted of exposing himself on stage during a show in Miami, Florida. This is the outgoing Florida governor, Charlie Crist, who admits he is a big Doors fan. He's proposing an official pardon for the legendary Jim Morrison, and the state clemency board meets Thursday, today, to consider that request. The pardon for Jim Morrison would have to have the consent of the governor and at least 2 other members of that Florida Board of Executive Clemency. Now, this is the statement I wanted to get to that just really got under my skin. Crist, who is set to leave office in January after losing his re-election bid, said after reviewing the case, he felt compelled to get involved. This is from Crist, who says, quote, "What I do know is that if someone hasn't committed a crime, that should be recognized. We live in a civil society that understands that lasting legacy of a human being, and maybe the last act for which they may be known, is something that never occurred in the first place. It's never a bad idea to try to right a wrong." Well, I'm glad Governor Crist has come to this realization. I'm hoping Governor Crist then would look at some of the thousands of Floridians who have been imprisoned and arrested on marijuana charges during his term, and maybe he would consider pardoning them while they're still alive. Or if he's really just interested in doing a posthumous pardon, you know, someone who's already died, maybe he could give a pardon to Rachel Hoffman, the young Florida college student who was killed during an undercover drug sting. Yeah, the only reason she was in that undercover drug sting is because she had originally been busted for marijuana in her apartment, and she was so scared of going to prison, and she was so bamboozled by the Tallahassee Police Department, they gave her a gun, 2 ounces of marijuana, 1,500 ecstasy pills, and $13,000 to go on an undercover sting. The cops lost track of her, and she was murdered by the drug dealers that she went undercover to bust. And if you want to pardon someone, Governor Crist, that's someone to pardon. Rachel Hoffman, who lost her life because of your state's continued war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. The other funny thing about this Jim Morrison pardon thing is CNN got in touch with Patricia Morrison, and she wasn't at the concert where the Lizard King, Jim Morrison, allegedly flashed the crowd and whipped out his little lizard. Apparently the only photograph or any proof they have of this is Jim Morrison with his hands down his pants. Nobody has any photographs of him actually doing what he was threatened to do. And of course, this was the trial that he was appealing throughout the end of his life when he had moved out of the United States and moved to Paris because of all of the hectic problems and all of the stress that he was dealing with from that indecency and obscenity trial that he underwent in Miami. So they got a hold of his ex-wife, Patricia Morrison, and she said that Jim Morrison would have found the idea of a pardon silly, that he would, quote, hate, loathe, detest, and despise the whole idea. He would think it is yet another pathetic attempt by the state of Florida to use him for its own cheap and cynical publicity-hungry purposes, and I have no doubt that he would rip the pardon into tiny pieces. He didn't do anything wrong, but he wouldn't want to be cleared. To me, pardoning him for this would make all the pain and suffering he went through in regards to this trial utterly meaningless, and I believe Jim would feel the same way. Absolutely, because the pardon here for indecency, it's not as if anyone, Governor Crist tried to say something about somebody's lasting legacy and how they'll be remembered. It's not like people are sitting around going, yeah, remember Jim Morrison, that guy who showed his wang during a concert? That's not the first thing people think of Jim Morrison. It's not the 30th thing people think about when they think of the legacy of Jim Morrison. This is all about Governor Christ wanting to play fanboy to the Doors here and leave something at the end of his tenure here that makes him look goody-goody to some people, or maybe just to himself. It's ridiculous. It is shameless political posturing. And if you really want to posthumously pardon somebody, Governor Christ, pardon Rachel Hoffman.
On a lighter note, I think it's time for a break.
It is time for a break. It's 20 after, and when we come back, we will have your Daily Toker Tunes with John Doe Radio. Stick around.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would say to South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit MarijuanaIsSafer.com. NORML Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of NORML Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at norml.org.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday, our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show in Denver, Colorado. Accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
John Doe Radio. John Doe, Groovin' Thursday, but not so much Groovin' Thursday. I decided to change it up. It is a Rockin' Thursday here on NORML Show Live, so maybe you get a double dose, Rockin' Thursday and a Rockin' Friday. Let's get to it. Enough of my chit-chat. Midnight to 12 was part of the first show I got to promote on air as an actual radio DJ. As small as this seems, it was one of the coolest things ever, being a brand new radio DJ. It's the small things we remember, right? And I was a concert promoter before this, mind you, so why this meant so much to me, you understand, I hope. Anyway, these guys are are not only one of the best rock bands I've had the chance to see live, they are also a great group of guys. We say that a bunch, but honestly, it's easy to say with these guys. Not a big group of tokers, but it's all about the music this week. From Los Angeles, California, the band got a big kick when their tune Slam was highlighted on the Teen Bop show, One Tree Hill. You all remember that, right? From that point, they started to get radio play, and just like any other band wanting to make it, they started to tour continuously. I got to bring these guys into the town I was in a few times, and every time I was reminded what it was like to be a musician in a band, because these guys really represent that brotherhood that it can be. Many tunes are hits off their album 12. This one I selected is called Rhyme or Reason. Enjoy and please support independent acts, not only like Midnight to 12, but Normal Show Live and John Doe Radio. To all that have donated to us for the great KushCon broadcast, we thank you for it. I am John Doe. Make sure you check out the live John Doe Radio show now, Monday through Friday on stickam.com/John Doe Radio. Starts at 11 in the morning, Mile High Time, 1 Eastern. Until we meet again, see ya.
Anatomy of my brain, entangled beyond all my control, falling farther away, waiting for something that is gone, and I don't need you. Tell me what to do.
At the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing media and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 420 somewhere.
Time to check out NORML's Cannabis Community Calendar, which you can find at norml.org/calendar. We got a busy weekend coming up. Tomorrow, Saturday, Cleveland NORML in Cleveland, Ohio is having its fundraiser and meeting. For more information on that, you can check out clevelandnormal.org. It's their holiday fundraiser. The Northern Michigan Compassion Club is meeting at the Horizon Bookstore in Petoskey, Michigan. You can check that out from our calendar as well. NORML of South Florida is having a general meeting at the Broward County Library at the Carver Ranches branch on Saturday afternoon. This will be a general membership meeting to discuss preparations for the 13th annual medical marijuana benefit at Tobacco Road. So check them out, NORML of South Florida. Johnson County NORML in Kansas is having their public meeting at the Black Dog Coffee House. For more information, check out JOCO NORML, JOCO normal.org. On Sunday, December 12th, Macomb County NORML in Macomb County, Michigan will be having their meeting at Moose Tracks Bar and Grill in Roseville, Michigan. This is their December meeting. You can contact Judah at 586-383-1340 for more information. That phone number and email address are available on our calendar. Coming up next weekend in Portland, Oregon is the Oregon Medical Cannabis Awards, the largest strain award program in the state of Oregon. 28 medical marijuana strains grown by registered growers in the medical marijuana program will be judged by registered patients in the medical marijuana program on 6 categories, including medical efficacy, potency, aroma, taste, smoothness, and appearance. For more information on that, check out ornorml.org. Danny Danko from High Times Magazine will be there doing a grow seminar. There are likely to be other luminaries in attendance. Again, for more information, check out ornorml.org. And next weekend, of course, the KushCon in Denver, Colorado, December 17th, 18th, and 19th. We will be off the air on the 15th and 16th as we make our way to Denver. Then 17th, 18th, and 19th, bringing you live coverage all 3 days along with JohnDoeRadio.com. We'll be doing a co-broadcast. You'll definitely want to check that out. We're looking for help in offsetting the costs of increased bandwidth so we can bring you the best possible show with the highest quality. You can send your donations via PayPal to radicalruss@gmail.com or send check or money order to 4110 Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard, number 161, Portland, Oregon, 97214. We've raised $500 so far. We're looking to raise $1,200 to cover the cost of the best possible bandwidth we can get. We're also auctioning off a new copy of Ed Rosenthal's book, The Marijuana Grower's Handbook, the full-color Grower's Handbook, autographed by Ed Rosenthal, Tommy Chong, and Keith Straub. Our high bid so far is $100. You can send your bids in to stash@normal.org. The highest bid by Sunday midnight will win the book. And for more information on all of the events on the NORML Cannabis Community Calendar, check out norml.org/calendar.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
In terms of legalization of drugs, I think that the battle, the war on drugs has been a utter failure. And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. Criminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. Criminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure.
NORML Show Live, where we don't change our position on decriminalization in an election year.
One of the most disturbing elements of the war on marijuana is how it has made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows firsthand the futility of the drug war and reaches out to the community and to current law enforcement to end our war on drugs through legalization. It's time now to speak to one such officer in our continuing look at Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. On the second and fourth Thursdays of every month, we speak to retired and current former law enforcement officials here in Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And joining us today is a former Aviation and Marine Group supervisor from Customs and Border Protection and the Department of Homeland Security. He's retired now and out of Granbury, Texas. We're speaking with Terry L. Nelson. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm really excited in talking to you because we do so many stories about the violence and the drug war in Mexico. Day after day, week after week, we hear the horrendous stories of beheaded bodies and tortured people. And just this week, we did a story on a Mexican police chief, a woman who'd been in the office just 2 months before she was gunned down by the Mexican drug war criminals. You have a lot of experience with Department of Homeland Security working in Mexico, Central America, South America. Can you tell us about the war on drugs in Mexico and the futility of our fighting it the way we're fighting it?
Well, it's totally asinine, I guess would be an appropriate word to use. We're not making any progress. If you, I call it the balloon theory. Even if you make an incremental amount of progress along the border, halting illegal substances from coming in, they will just change to another location. For example, in the 80s, we were very successful. In the 90s, very successful cutting down the smuggling routes across the Caribbean. But now, since they moved all of our assets out to the west, then the Caribbean is up reportedly about 125% in smuggling activity coming back across the Caribbean. So if we move back there, then it'll pop back up in the west. It's an unwinnable war, is what it really amounts to, and it's a war on American people instead of a war on the product. If it wasn't for prohibition, there would not be the crime and violence associated. And personally, I believe that we could reduce the crime and violence associated with drug trafficking by about 80% for total legalization of it. Because, as we all know, most of the violence occurs in the distribution and trafficking networks, not in the end-user product. A small amount of crime is involved with people, stealing to buy overpriced products, but it's a small percentage of the overall crime involved in it.
And looking at the situation down there, we often heard a quote. It came out of the ONDCP, the Drug Czar's office. It was repeated by Attorney General Terry Goddard in Arizona. It was repeated by Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State. This percentage, they say, that the Mexican drug trafficking organizations receive from the trafficking and sales of marijuana. Now, there were some that said it was 60%. That was the ONDCP's original number. Then the Rand Corporation said it was less than that. Can you give us, having your experience working down there in Mexico, of how much you think marijuana contributes to the overall profits of the drug trafficking organizations?
It'd have to be a guess, and that's dangerous because even the people that allegedly know, it's all over the board. But a major percentage, surely 50% of their profit comes from marijuana. Of course, it's not all grown in Mexico. We have to realize that there are state parks and national parks in the United States. According to the DEA, approximately 10 million pounds of pot is grown domestically. So we can see that it doesn't really matter that we try to wrest our way out of a problem. We can't do it. So the best thing to do is to legalize it, regulate and control who can sell it and who can buy it, and take the criminal gangs out of it. Because regardless of what we do in Mexico or anywhere else, as long as there's a demand for a product, someone will meet that demand, or they will change to another product that meets that demand. So it's a never-ending war. It's like a little hamster wheel, and you're never going to win it. So if you can't win something, there's no reason to keep doing it, especially something that costs as much as the war on drugs does. It basically destroys our American families when it puts one or more members of them in prison. Then you have children growing up without parental control, and then the cycle continues. I believe the numbers are about 25% of the people going into prison today come out of institutions or foster homes. And many of those are because of one or more parents is in prison. It's just not the right way to do it. The best way to handle it, when we do have a drug problem, I'll admit that, the best way to handle is through education and treatment, not through incarceration. That's just not the right way to treat the American people.
That's so good to hear. And again, we're speaking with Terry L. Nelson, retired from Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection. Having worked with Customs and worked with the Border Patrol, maybe you can comment on a story that's gotten a lot of press in the past couple of weeks, and that is of legendary country singer Willie Nelson being busted at a Border Patrol stop in Sierra Blanca, Texas for marijuana. I'm wondering, with Border Patrol being able to operate within 100 miles of the U.S. borders, how much of their work ends up being drug interdiction as compared to dealing with immigration or terrorism issues? And do you feel that detracts from them being able to handle immigration and terrorism successfully?
Well, it certainly does. Back when I was in the Border Patrol, of course, we did not have Title 21 or 40, so we did not do work drugs specifically. We would catch them under and turn them over to state and locals, or if it was a large enough amount, we would call DEA to take it. But we didn't do it ourselves. We concentrated on illegal aliens and the smuggling of illegal aliens and the inhuman treatment, to some respect, of the aliens that were smuggled. You can't imagine what it's like. I know of people that have been stuck in the trunks of cars and taken 500, 400 miles stuck in the trunk of a car by an alien smuggler, a people smuggler. They're not very good people, and that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus back to our core values there, which is defending an America's border. And you can also lump counterterrorism in there, but you can't do counterterrorism if you're busy looking for drugs. You want the low-hanging fruit because it's an easy bust. And I don't think it's the Border Patrol's place to be doing that. I believe they should be concentrating on what their job is, which is to enforce immigration laws in this country, not spend their time trying to focus on drug laws, which are absolutely out of whack with the wishes of America. I believe the number is 75% of Americans think the war on drugs is a total failure. Why our governments can't get it is a mystery to me, unless there's just so much money being made in the testing industry, the defense industry, and the private contracting industry. Just so much money being made that no one in position of power wants to stop it, and they choose to continue to incarcerate our citizens at the highest level of any country in the world, not just the free world, in the world. As I know you guys at NORML are well aware that America incarcerates more people than Russia and China combined. Mm-hmm. And that's not something we should be proud of.
No, definitely not. Not the land of the free that I signed up for. Terry Nelson, looking at the situation there with the Border Patrol agents, you mentioned this new Title 21 power they have to go after drugs the way they do now. In the rank and file, the people that are working for Border Patrol, and I imagine some very patriotic Americans trying to save us from terrorism and such, how do the rank and file feel about having to exercise these powers to intercept drugs? Are they for it, or does it bother them? They feel like they're distracted from their real work.
Well, I think the younger guys are for it because they think it's sexy or exciting or something, and they can go brag to their buds about it. But I know a lot of the older, more long in the tooth agents that really don't go for it. They know it's a losing battle. Plus, many of them, especially guys my age, grew up in the '60s and '70s. And, it wasn't the forbidden product that it is today, and a lot of people enjoyed it and partied and had a good time and didn't cause a lot of crime that we can remember. Maybe we were just turning a blind eye to it, but I don't think so. They would rather do their job, which is Border Patrol is to protect our nation's borders. It's not to arrest our citizens for nonviolent or consensual crimes.
All right. We're speaking again with Terry Nelson, retired from the U.S. Border Patrol, U.S. Customs Service, Department of Homeland Security. He's with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, LEAP. You can find them at copsaylegalizdrugs.com or at leap.cc. And Terry, I wanted to talk to you about the seizures. Every day we get a story that'll come across our desk about them seizing 100 pounds in El Paso, or they'll seize 300 pounds in Tijuana, and they'll find tunnels and all these different infrastructure that are being used by the traffickers here. Would it be fair to say that the routes and the methods they use to smuggle drugs are just sort of dry runs for them being able to smuggle human beings?
No, I don't believe so. That the more sophisticated smuggling avenues, i.e. The tunnels and stuff, were I would assume more than likely are used for cocaine and more valuable products. Now, we do know that I think it was 40,000 pounds was the amount they got in San Diego in this latest bust. Well, 40,000 pounds out of 10 million pounds that's grown domestically in the United States, it's kind of a drop in the bucket. It's kind of ridiculous to even think about it. And for 40 years, or 37 years that I can remember, we've always talked about this huge bust will make a difference. This huge bust will make a difference. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger. I'll not marijuana, but my biggest bust that I orchestrated and commanded over was 14 metric tons of cocaine. It's 30,000 pounds of coke. So, and it made no difference in the supply in the United States. So, you're not going to win it that way. We need to educate our public to the harms and let people try to, if they choose to do drugs, they should do it responsibly with the amount of information they need to do it safely.
I'm wondering also, you're a LEAP speaker, and so you end up speaking to a lot of different crowds all over the country, different audiences made up of people who may be new to the issue of marijuana or drug law reform. How is your message as a LEAP speaker received in general, just by the public? Do you find people understand what you're saying and generally agree with you, or do you get a lot of pushback from people?
The percentage is somewhere around 90%. If you can get people to sit down and talk to you and just listen to your information and give you feedback and ask questions you can respond to, my rate's about 90% of the people that agree. There are those people their mind is just closed. Their mind is made up when they come in the building. They think you're crazy and nuts, and that's nothing going to change that. Well, I don't even care about people like that because they're part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. But around 90%, and I have worked many of the state legislatures' conferences where the state senators and legislators and leaders of our state government go each year to have their conference. And we run about 82% of the state senators and representatives that come by our table agree with the LEAP message. 82% of those come by the table. Now, it's not scientific because everybody at the convention doesn't come by the table. I will grant you that. But if you can just give people the message and sit and talk to them about it, the failures of it and the harm that it's causing, sane, rational people get it almost instantly. You can see it. You can see the change coming, and when you're talking to them, they'll start to nod their head and look over to their friends and kind of smile a little bit or something. You know that they understand what you're talking about, and they know that it's a failure. And I always start my presentations out with, how many people think we're winning the drug war? Well, no one raises their hands. And then I will say, how many people think that the drugs should be left in the hands of criminal cartels and drug gangs? No one raises their hand. I said, well, heck, you guys already agree with me. What am I even here for? But I don't think drugs should be left in the hands of criminals and drug gangs. It should be regulated and controlled. We should try our best to keep it out of the hands of young people, especially in their formative years in, junior high school and at least the first couple of years of high school. I believe the studies show that it can cause some damage in those formative years. We need more studies, of course, so we can be more honest about the information we put out and give people. I'm a firm believer that if you give people credible, reliable information, they will make the right decision. I have great faith in the American people and great faith in America's youth. They're good kids. Nearly all of them that I meet. I mean, some of them look a little weird nowadays for me, but I still like them. I still think they're good kids. And you give them the right information, they'll make the right decision. They're going to make a few mistakes growing up, but that's okay. I mean, as long as it doesn't kill them, it'll make them stronger. And then when they get to be adults, they've got the wild oats out of the system, and they'll get married and settle down, and their usage, if there is a usage at that time, will go down drastically. I mean, that's history has proven that. So
absolutely.
Absolutely. So I'm just a believer in regulation and control of narcotics and instead of incarceration because it doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work. And then perhaps, just perhaps, with our prisons weren't overcrowded with nonviolent offenders, we could do something about rehabilitating the violent offenders. Maybe give them some decent training where they can get out on the street, they can make a living and not go back. The recidivism rate is so high amongst people getting out of prison that it's almost scary. It's almost, you let them out if they're going to be right back in 2 months. But education, credible information provided to people, they'll make the right decisions. I have great faith that they will.
Oh, I have great faith they will too, especially if you're out there and the other LEAP speakers are out there giving them that great information. You do a job that, myself as someone who's in the movement and kind of known as a so-called radical, people might not hear the message as well as they hear it from someone like you with the police credentials and the serious look about you. So we appreciate so much what you and all the folks for LEAP are doing. Thank you for being on our show.
Well, we thank you for the opportunity to get the LEAP message out there. As you know, we're all a voluntary organization, a 501c, and none of us are paid. We do it because we believe in our heart it's the right thing to do.
That's right. Terry Nelson, former of the Customs and Border Protection Aviation Marine Group Supervisor from the Department of Homeland Security, calling us from Granbury, Texas. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Terry.
Thanks for having me, Russ. You be safe.
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for making pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway. How to hide herb in your car. Whether to grow your own. How precisely to legalize it. Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place. Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times Magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook wove all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
According to Carl Sagan, making apple pies from scratch is extremely difficult.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
You might emerge somewhere else.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, Tokers and Tokeheads. Hey, yesterday we were up in Astoria, Oregon, doing a presentation on marijuana legalization, and it was a great turnout. We had about a couple dozen people show up, and for small-town Astoria, that's just an amazing thing. It's really tough for small-town people to get out and be reformers because everybody knows your name, everybody knows who you are. It's kind of simple and easy to be anonymous in a big city like Portland, but kudos to all those people in Astoria for coming out. Part of this presentation, I wanted to give people a way of winning the water cooler wars. This is something I learned from Tom Hartman, and it has to do with being a talk radio personality and getting information out to people in a nice, easy, soundbite, digestible way to be able to fight back when people are arguing with you at the water cooler at work or wherever it is you talk with people about the news of the day. So this is a part of the presentation that I want to deliver for you here for our radical rant, and it's about fighting reefer madness. And I always like to open this up with a quote from Terence McKenna. If the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness don't include the right to experiment with your own consciousness, then the Declaration of Independence isn't worth the hemp it was written on. We completely believe that here at NORML Show Live. And when we try to legalize, we oftentimes get our opponents trying to denigrate us as the messengers, right? They want to say, oh, you guys are just a bunch of drug legalizers, right? You just want to legalize drugs because you all just selfishly want to get high. Well, no, it's not just about us wanting to get high, because drugs are here already and people are plenty getting high already. Right? It doesn't matter what we do. People are already getting high. The question is whether or not when people are getting high, we want that to lead to the corruption of law enforcement. And what we're fighting for is not just wanting to get high, but protecting our civil liberties. We know that there's this huge underground market in marijuana. We just want to bring that economy above ground so everyone can benefit from taxation, through new jobs, through the renovation of neighborhoods. That's all we're looking for here. Also, it's not just about getting high. We realize that if we try to stop people from getting high, we are refusing to unlock all the medical potential of cannabis. Medical marijuana patients still suffer. They have to qualify under a limited set of conditions, or in some states, they don't qualify at all because there's no medical marijuana law. If marijuana were legal, this would come to an end. People could manage their own health care. Of course, it's also our hemp farming roots. You know, America was built on hemp. Our country in 1611, the Jamestown colony planted the first hemp plantation. From that point on, colonists were required to grow and pay their taxes in hemp. Our Declaration of Independence and Constitution were written on hemp paper. Our sailing ships were sailing with hemp ropes and hemp sails. Our lamps were being powered with hemp oil. It's time to get America back to our hemp farming roots. And once again, because we're trying to stop people from getting high, we don't let our farmers grow the hemp that won't even get you high. And most importantly, the reason we're here trying to legalize drugs, legalize marijuana, is to save our children from the dangers of drugs. In an unregulated market, kids are not getting they're not getting logical information or realistic information about safe drug use, about drug use in general, and they're told all drugs are bad, which leads kids to think that marijuana is as bad as heroin, and when they try marijuana and find it's not so bad, they might want to go on and try the other drugs that they don't think were so bad. And also, to call us well-financed drug legalizers, let me show you a little graph here. On the right, you can see the budget of the federal government with its centrally coordinated hierarchy of law enforcement bureaucracy. That big red bar, $15 billion a year, $15.5 billion a year, the federal government is spending to maintain prohibition. Now, on the left, you can see the green bar that represents the combined budgets of NORML, MPP, DPA, SSDP, SAFER, ASA, MAPS, LEAP, every organization, every nonprofit involved in ending marijuana prohibition at some level. What's that? You say you can't see the green bar? Right, because the green bar is only about $3 million combined for all of the organizations organized to end drug prohibition. $3 million versus $15.5 billion. So who's the well-financed organization in this scenario? Now, as we look to legalize, people have some basic fears about cannabis, and these are things that are really easily shot down with a couple of simple lines. First of all, one of them is they say that marijuana is a gateway drug to hard drugs. And the easiest way to shut that down is to point out the 1999 Institute of Medicine study that asked about this and found there was no such thing as the gateway theory. But if you want to talk to them, just tell them, hey, you know, heroin and cocaine addicts say the first drug they ever tried was actually alcohol. Should we get rid of alcohol because it's a gateway drug to heroin? The same logic applies to marijuana. Just because people do drugs in a certain sequence does not mean that one drug led to another drug. If that were true, then caffeine leads to alcohol and alcohol leads to marijuana. They often bring up physical or sexual problems, things like people might get lung cancer or infertility. The lung cancer one's easy to shoot down with the Dr. Donald Tashkin study from 2006. 30-year study on people that smoked marijuana regularly found that people that did so not only had the same risk for cancer as people that didn't smoke, but they actually had less risk for head, neck, and lung cancer than people that did not smoke pot. And as far as the infertility thing goes, well, Willie Nelson has 7 kids. Okay? It's not like the Rastafarians died out. It's not like you can go to any park and see a whole bunch of hippie kids running around. It's obvious that smoking marijuana does not cause the kind of infertility problems they say it would, or I wouldn't be here. They talk about the increased potency of today's cannabis, that somehow today's not your father's Woodstock weed is so deadly powerful. One way you can combat that is to remind them that in the 60s and 70s, when they were collecting samples of weed to study, they were collecting a whole bunch of feral hemp, ditchweed out there that nobody smokes and nobody gets high off of, and that was added into the average, and it brought the average very low for the 60s and 70s, as compared to today, when most of the seizures are from indoor and hydroponic type of gardening. There was strong marijuana in the 60s and 70s. There is strong marijuana today. It has always been available. But the potency of marijuana really doesn't matter because THC is non-toxic. You can't overdose on it. The thing that happens when when you have really weak THC marijuana is you smoke a lot of it and you get high. When you have really strong THC marijuana, you smoke a little bit of it and you get high. So in fact, the higher THC marijuana may be better for you because you're taking in less smoke to achieve the same high. Also, they'll talk about addiction and dependence, that somehow it's very addictive and people will get addicted to marijuana. And it is true, some people do develop a dependence to marijuana. The National Institutes of Drug Abuse say that dependence rate is about 9%. 9% of the people who try marijuana have a dependence with it, compared to 16% for people who try alcohol, compared to 35% for people who try tobacco. If we're worried about marijuana being dangerous and addictive, it's time to make alcohol and tobacco illegal because they're far more dangerous and addictive. And if the people bring up that whole amotivational syndrome, that you'll just become a loser if you use marijuana, it's so easy to just bring up Michael Phelps. Or bring up the presidents, the people that have run for president in this country, and you will find that most of them have smoked pot. In fact, as we look at it, Clinton, Gore, Quayle, Kemp, Bush, Kerry, Edwards, Obama, and Palin are all people that have run for president or vice president since 1992 who have all admitted to smoking pot. Didn't seem to hurt their motivation any at all. We got plenty more of that. It'll be part of my book coming out this summer. Make sure to check that out on the lecture circuit. We're done. We gotta go. We'll be back for hour 2. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it.